in a few years, when we look back to this period, we will remember this period as when we were thinking deeply about what is freedom. Because here's why. Of course, look, we have a drawdown of 50% in the fund. So you might think, what is this guy doing talking about freedom when his fund is down so much? The fund is down in part because Elon Musk's buying Twitter and because Elon Musk is being attacked by the left-wing hardcore, whatever it is, part of our political establishment. And therefore, freedom is at the forefront. There are some issues, actually another part of freedom that is affecting our portfolio are the lockdowns in China, which are directly related to freedom. So really, this is the period that we have to come out of as a society, also as a fund, in terms of even being able to look back in a few years. Because if we don't get out of this with freedom intact, then who knows what's going to be in a couple of years. But we hope that this is the case. We hope that the fabric of our society is still strong enough to maintain freedom. And we want to ask ourselves, what is freedom? What is it? You know, we're reading The Open Society and Its Enemies right now by Karl Popper, which is, it's not a coincidence. I mean, I picked up this book, not necessarily thinking too much about, well, I need to read this right now because this is sort of the period of time and when it's all about freedom. But sometimes these things just come together. So I want to talk about all these things in this episode. This is the Not Even Wrong podcast. It's May 24th, 2022. This is Krim Delco. For the day, the fund is down 4.5%. The market is down 80 basis points. For the year, we are down 50.3%. The market is down 18.1%. We are underperforming by 32.2%. This is by far the largest drawdown we've ever had in dollars, of course, but also in percent. Actually, in percent, we never had a drawdown like this within 6 weeks. This happened in 6 weeks. So when I talk about volatility, and I keep sounding like a broken record at this point because almost every episode now starts about me saying, when I talk about volatility, that's what I mean. Volatility is the business. You have to survive swings like this. You have to be able to stay on course, understand what you're doing, fix errors, if necessary, change your portfolio, but you have to keep calm. You can't just rely on market prices to give you the guidance that you need. They're not enough. Market prices are very, very fragile because market prices, they change, and you need to understand what is not changing here. What is the signal in the noise? And the signal, I've given a longer episode 2 days ago about the risk factors and the vectors driving our largest position, Tesla, and we're still in that particular realm of thinking. What I want to do today is not talk about freedom, because freedom is important. Freedom is going to define this period in the early 2020s. The question of what is freedom, how important is it to us, how do we defend it, and who is attacking it? All of these questions come together. So let me first start with what is freedom. Freedom is the thing that when I feel that I'm doing things organically, that I'm doing things that are my tendencies, and nobody's coercing me to do it, and I feel organically just evolving into what I'm doing, then that's when I'm free. Now, of course, this is a little bit of maybe a long-winded answer, and for anybody who wants a definition, I'm not going to give you a definition. I'm just reading Karl Popper, and this is one of the big Popperian arguments that we can be entangled in words, we can be entangled in definitions here. He almost had a fight with Wittgenstein about this. So I'm a Popperian on that front. I think we should read from right to left. How do I feel about something? And then that is the thing I call freedom. I want to look at it from that perspective. So, and why is freedom so important? Why is this thing of doing things organically without coercion, without being forced by social or law, judicial factors into doing something? Why is this so important? Because this opens up creativity, it opens up action, it opens people up to do things that they are really good at. Because if you let people follow their tendencies, they will tend to do things that they're good at. We often see that at work, we see it in sports. We also see it on the negative side. You know, if we let people do whatever they are, maybe sometimes, you know, if somebody's annoying, if one of your family members is annoying and you don't tell them to stop, eating noisily and then, I don't know, make noise in the morning or whatever. They keep doing that because that's who they are, and that's kind of what freedom is. And it's a very, very difficult line to walk between protecting the freedom, letting people be who they are, and then also, of course, what if they step over? So this comes to the next question of, okay, how can we protect freedom? Why do we even have to protect it? Because freedom is a paradox. This is what Popper in The Open Society and Its Enemies talks a lot about, the paradox of freedom. The Greeks, Plato and Aristotle, what's the English word? Aristoteles in German. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Socrates, all these people were thinking about this. And why is the paradox? Well, if I let Hitler if I let him be free, well, it's going to take away my freedom. If I let Putin be free, so he's following his natural tendencies of trying to become the next czar of Russia and coerce people into living under his rule. Well, that's not okay. So certainly we have to follow a certain path towards maintaining freedom. The question now is, and this is again Popper, okay, what is moral philosophy when it comes to these things? In other words, what should I do? This is a simple definition of when we talk about moral philosophy and all that. The question basically is, what should we do? Morals is the question of what should I do next? And Bob Popper says, how about I just protect those people who I think have a good success to make my life and my environment a little bit better off. And if their ethics and their morals are necessary to do that, then I apply their ethics and their morals. And this is a good way to think about morals. So if I think that the people, let's say if I'm a 25-year-old young man in 1941 and I go conscribe to the army, I get called into the army to go fight against fascism in Europe and Japan. Well, this is something that might not be ethical in terms of, let's say, I don't want to kill people and all that, but it is helping me and my society get a little bit better in terms of being more free and less coerced. So I'm going to follow that, even though maybe there's a lot of things I don't agree with when it comes to war. So that's the Popperian way of looking at morals, or in other words, the Popperian answer to what should I do next. And I think now we're at the core of where we are today. So what's going on today is the following. We had a pandemic, and the pandemic unleashed forces that are, let's say, people who have lost out in the game of economics. In other words, the people that are either poor or getting poorer and are facing a large divide in income and wealth, those people stood up and gathered around slogans such as social justice warriors, Black Lives Matter, and in general, they were following the lockdowns and the scare of being infected by the virus, and all of these things unfortunately got turned into a political uprising. This is what's happening. And that's why we have a very left-wing fanatic fraction in our political system. We call them the wokists or wokeism. There is a lot of politics there, which are like many politics, like Marx and Lenin and all these people on the left that were fighting maybe initially for a more equal society. They all have good points, but it certainly went way too far, and it's coercing us into a society, or trying to coerce into society with less freedom. This is what Elon Musk is trying to prevent by buying Twitter and hopefully keeping free speech, which is another threat to the freedom that we're facing right now. This is what people like Jeff Bezos are trying to vocalize when they talk about, let's say, people just raising taxes on the rich, which is just another way to coerce people who have been successful in the game, are following the rules, generating wealth, productivity, and jobs for others, take the wealth away, and also destroy incentives for other people to do that. So there's a lot of vectors now, a lot of forces going against that. And this is sort of the stage. This is the stage that we're in right now. And that's why freedom matters so much. To us, the Orange Capital Partners, it matters for two reasons. One is we want to live in a society that is free, but we also strongly believe in the fact that freedom begets wealth and wealth begets freedom. Those things all come together. They don't. You can't have a non-free society generating wealth. Look at China. You can't have a non-free society generating wealth. Look at Russia. Even Europe is very, very bad in the on the wealth generation scale because the freedom there is being curtailed a lot. So we are absolutely determined to protect freedom as much as we can within our own mode of action. Whatever we can do, we invest accordingly. And before I finish this episode, I just want to say a couple of things about Elon Musk and his situation, because he affects our portfolio. Of course, Tesla is the largest position. Why is Elon Musk one of those people that we think are going to improve the situation for our society a little bit if we follow him or his ideas and invest in his companies? Well, there's a couple of things. One is he's increasing our optionality by giving us technologies such as electric cars and solar. So optionality makes us free. Again, we have more flexibility in acting. Let's say we don't have to buy oil from Russia. I think it's a little bit more than that also. I think Elon Musk has a little bit of that character of the idiot in Dostoevsky's, Prince Mishkin in Dostoevsky's The Idiot. Why? Because he has that almost naive capacity of transcending borders, dividing lines between hierarchies of people. And that is unleashing another force of freedom. And this is really what attracts me to people like him. I wish there were more people like him. I wish we could diversify not just our portfolio, but also our ideas and the talks and the writings and all of these things that come from people like Elon Musk. I wish there were more. I wish it was more diversified, but it isn't. And we can all be inspired by this. I'm trying to raise my child, my kids accordingly. I'm trying to live accordingly. I'm trying to not just invest the money in companies like Tesla because they are going to produce very high returns, but also because they're improving our society a little bit. And this is one of the main factors of the moral philosophy of Karl Popper, and it's also part of our principle stack and our purpose. The purpose of Orange Capital Partners is to generate wealth by investing in fundamentally new concepts and engineering practices with large impact. So by formulating this purpose, we left away the point of making our society a little bit better. And the reason is because this is, of course, a very subjective thing. But we do believe that the word better or good or doing good, there is an objective way to talk about these things. But we didn't want to entangle that into our purpose statement. But when we act, when we ask ourselves, what's next? What should we invest our money in next? We do think, is our money going to be working towards a slightly better future? And that's a very dangerous path, of course, because we could have, let's say, shorted Tesla and made money and then reinvested in Tesla. So there are these types of things, but we also have a good answer to why we're not doing that, because we just don't think we're good at timing. So to summarize, the word freedom is a lot more than just a phrase to enable people to feel good about themselves. It is the thing that I feel when I do things that are my natural tendencies and that I feel like I'm doing organically, without coercion, without being forced into it. It is the thing that unleashes my creativity while I'm doing these three things. And I think it applies to everybody. And freedom is at the core of our society right now. It's actually at the core of our portfolio. Because what Tesla is going through right now, in a lot of ways, is being impacted by the enemies of freedom. Some of them explicit, such as the Chinese government locking down people in Shanghai and Beijing and other places, such as the wokists here in the US attacking Musk for alleged things he did, such as the White House trying to curtail the progress of Tesla just to protect the unions, and then, of course, the free speech situation around Twitter. So there's a lot of things that are directly impacting us that have to do with freedom. We believe that this is a fight worth fighting, because the fight for freedom is almost the only fight that's worth fighting. It is the fight. The fight for freedom is the fight. And we at Orange Capital Partners, we fight it with our words, with our hearts, and with our money. Thank you.